How did I get boned? No. pjnet.tv. Time for Michelle Medlock Adams. It's about 3 minutes beyond our normally appointed time. We got the bumper running. We've got her connected. We've got a chat room waiting. We're recording. We're streaming on, yes, all 9 of 9, not 8 of 9, 9 of 9 channels. And we will switch to Studio 8 in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, it is so good to be back, and it's good to know that everybody on YouTube can actually see this. And folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, great. And if you're watching this on Facebook, that's great. Twitter, that's great. Everything's great. We're glad you are sharing your time with us, and we hope that we don't disappoint you. We'd like to invite you to the fellowship right now. Live chat room, pjnet.tv. You know, every week at this time, we get together with Michelle Medlock Adams. And it's funny because normally we exchange a few, sentences back and forth what to start with. But she's been kind of busy, and to be honest, so have I. And I haven't really had a chance to compare notes with her. And I asked her a moment ago, what are we going to talk about? And she says, what are we going to talk about?
I mean, we've never had any problem talking about nothing. So, but there are things to talk about.
Michelle,
we're very chatty.
I would like to see you get at a loss for words. That would
you
would
and
make
my husband both. Yeah. Listen, it's good to be back. I missed y'all last week, but I'm really glad that Barbie and her husband were here to talk about the work that they're doing overseas. And isn't she delightful? Don't you love Barbie? Barbie was amazing. So I'm glad that she got to be here with you.
Well, Michelle, you know a lot of people, and you are really. I mean, I have often compared you to an octopus on roller skates,
Yes.
but you always make arrangements, and you find people that you step aside and give some people a chance to tell their story, and we so appreciate that because we're looking for people too, and we enjoy the regulars. We need those anchors. But we're discovering that the real sizzle in the skillet are people, first-time visitors, because they have their own little fan club they bring with them.
That's right.
So they were, and everybody wondered, Barbie at the last minute said, "Can my husband come on?" I thought, well, sure, and he sat there and sat there and sat there.
It'd be like if you had Jeff come on, right? You couldn't get a word in, it would be.
Yeah, So I finally directed a question to him, and when he speaks, it's good. Okay.
Yes. Ralph, right? Yeah, he's a great guy.
Yeah, and he seems like he's like an old shoe that's broke in good. They just slip right on. Just comfortable, easygoing guy. But
the good news. No matter, nothing ruffles his feathers. They are great people. Barbie and I used to work together at the Bedford Timesville newspaper, and became friends there and have been friends ever since. We've been to several writer conferences together, and I really adore her. So I'm grateful that she's my friend, and I'm honored to know people like Barbie and her husband that do this amazing work. But I'm glad to be back with you guys. To say all that, I'm glad to be back with you guys. I was chatting with Ben earlier. It's been a crazy week. I had a book launch yesterday, and then today Bethany and I had a TV interview this morning with gosh, I can't even remember the name of the station now. That's terrible. TCT TV, I think it was, out of Akron, Ohio. So, and that was about Platinum Faith. So, God just lines these things up, and you just got to walk through the doors. But that's why the book that launched officially yesterday is called The Perfect Persimmon. This is that cookbook I told you about that I can't cook, and so it's really funny that God would allow me to do a cookbook, right, with recipes and stories and folklore. And it's become kind of the joke. People would tease me, how in the world did you do a cookbook? Because when we ask you to come to our potlucks, we ask you to bring the rolls, because you can't really mess those up.
So you pick up some rolls at Kentucky Fried on the way in and take them. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. Or go to the deli and just buy theirs. Mm-hmm. But I thought, this isn't just to promote this book, but the tale of this book, the way that this book came to be. We were at the Book Expo of America in New York City not this past year, obviously, because it was canceled, but the year before. And when we were kind of roaming the halls, we stopped at the Indiana University Press, which was my alma mater, IU. And when we stopped there, I just wanted to get a picture in front of the big, IU symbol, because I'm an IU grad and I'm a huge Indiana University basketball fan. And I just thought it'd be fun to have a picture. I was like, look at the Hoosiers representing in New York City. Whoop, whoop. I was like, I'll be in Michelle. That's how I am. And so Kyle, my agent, Kyle Young, is University of Michigan grad, played football for Michigan on the line. Kyle's a big U of M fan, and we're big rivals. And so he's taking a picture, and I'm telling him, you can't set foot in this booth because you're a Michigan person. So don't even think about setting foot in the IU booth. And this editor's over there kind of watching the whole thing, and she's like, so you're an IU grad and he isn't? I'm like, that is exactly right. So you want to help me blockade this so he can't get on this carpet? And we were just kind of teasing, and she and I struck up a conversation. Her name's Ashley Runyon. She's no longer there. She's actually gone to a different press now, but she and I just chatted, and Kyle as well. And then Ashley Jones came over and chatted. Mm-hmm. She was there with me. And then Ashley got a book deal for the modern cast iron book that just came out for her, right, that she's been sharing recipes. Mm-hmm. And I got without ever having to do a proposal, I just sort of wrote up this couple page presentation really for the perfect persimmon, because we were talking about one of the books that they had on the shelves there in the IU press in their little booth, and it was called The Hot Brown, and it was basically the history of that sandwich, and that really originated at the Brown Hotel there in Louisville, Kentucky, and that's where Jeff and I spent our first honeymoon night, and then we went off to Gatlinburg for the rest of our honeymoon. Yeah. Yes, I won't elaborate on that, no. But that's kind of it's sort of a tradition in our family. Like my sister and her husband spent their first night there, and then my mother and my father spent their first night there. So it was kind of cool to be at the Brown Hotel, knowing that that's just sort of how things happen. And then I love that sandwich. Like, that's one of my favorite sandwiches. So to see this cute little cookbook about that, it was really a neat little story she was telling me about how that cookbook came to be, and it has the history of the hotel and where all the different recipes came from. And so I said to her, just not even thinking I should be the one to write this, I just said, speaking of Midwestern kind of things like that, I said, you should do something about the persimmon. Persimmon pudding is a big deal. In fact, our county, Lawrence County, Indiana, we have a persimmon festival. It's going to be 75 years old this year. And I was telling her all about the little persimmon. And she knew what a persimmon was, but she didn't know about persimmon pudding. And we talked about that. And I told her I made a mean persimmon pudding, that I really wasn't a very good cook. But man, my persimmon pudding was famous in the area because came from my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had the best persimmon pudding recipe. So we just, kind of chatting it up. And that's when I said, so you guys should really do a book about that. And she said, well, I think you should do the book. I said, oh, I don't think so. I'm not a cook. I mean, that's funny, actually.
She's not a writer.
I only know. You're right. I'm a writer, right? I'm a writer, but I'm not a cook. So that's not going to work. But isn't it funny how God will just present things like that, things you never expected, just as a little bonus? I feel like I call those kisses from heaven. You just kind of walk into his favor. It's just truly just God's favor, just kind of like he dumped out right on top of you, and all of a sudden you got a book contract you didn't even go looking for. I was excited for Ashley, but I didn't think I was going to get a book contract, and then that led to another one. Then Dell came over, and Dell started talking about his sports writing, and I told him that was my former life. I was a sports writer for the Bedford Times-Mail for a bit, and I was a huge Hoosiers fan. So then Dell and I got to do the Heart of a Hoosier book, and that's coming out next year. He did Michigan Motivations with Kyle. It's just like God had all these things for us at this one little booth, just because I was being Michelle and taking crazy pictures at their booth. It was just, I'm just saying, only God can orchestrate that kind of stuff. It's just his favor. And I don't know who needs to hear this tonight, but I just want to say, it may look like nothing's happening right now. Maybe you're believing God for something. It might be a contract for a book, or it might be that you've got some dream that's too big to even share. You've only journaled about it. You haven't even told your spouse about it. And it looks like nothing's moving in that front because things are crazy right now, and everything seems to come to a stop because of this crazy virus and the rioting and all the other stuff that's going on that's bad. But I want you to know God is still working on your behalf. And when it's his divine timing, when you least expect it, usually is when he'll drop that favor right on top of you, and you'll walk into something that you never even dreamed of. And that just seems like that's how pretty much all of my career has gone. And it doesn't stop because of COVID, and it doesn't stop because of rioting, and it doesn't stop because of who wins an election. God isn't moved by any of that. He's only moved by our faith. So you can just stand in faith and shout the victory before the victory even comes, knowing that he's faithful to do those things, that he has a plan. And so I just feel like that somebody might have given up tonight. And I'm telling you, if I can have a cook come out, the days of miracles are still happening. Because That, Coach, is a miracle of God.
Is there anything spiritual in the book itself, or is it just a cookbook?
There are a couple of, I can't keep God out of anything I'm doing because that's just who I am. I like to talk about Jesus. So I ask people to submit stories about persimmons and what they've meant to them. Seems like in our society, things revolve around food, right? We have potluck dinners at church, and we have every time you get together, there's got to be food. And so people are quite passionate about their persimmons in this area. And yes, I have one particular story about a gal named Mildred Mullis, who I believe it was her daughter-in-law that submitted the story. And it's made me cry when I got to interview her and find out everything that had happened. But I'll just shorten the story. Basically, this lady she was involved in missions, much like Barbie and her husband, and she always would get persimmon pulp and make persimmon puddings and different things, and she would sell them to get money for these missions projects. And she did it every year. She had the sweetest pulp, the best persimmon tree in all the area, and everybody knew it. You see, when you find out the best persimmon pulp comes from a tree, that's where you want to go. But if it's not on your property, you have to buy it from the person that owns the tree. So it became a business for her, not for herself, but to raise money for missions. But then she had a bout of cancer and was so sick she couldn't go out to pick up the persimmons. She was so concerned that particular fall she was going to be unable to do it. But her daughter-in-law said, knowing, or it might have been her daughter, anyway, her relative said, I knew that she would go ahead with it, even though it was going to be detrimental to her health for her to leave the house and go out there. It's a lot of work to pick up the persimmons. They fall to the ground. That's when they're ripe, and you have to go get them before all the animals get them. And, you got to debug them and all that stuff. It's a lot of work. And she said, I just was so concerned. And that was the only year in the history of this tree that it didn't produce any persimmons. Because her daughter-in-law said it's because I don't think God thought she could handle the temptation. She'd been out there on her hands and knees picking up those persimmons because she was that dedicated to serving Him. And so that was the year that tree didn't produce any persimmons. It has every year before and every year since after she went through all her treatments. And I thought, isn't that just like God? He'll just pour out His blessings on you, and then if you can't be trusted to like do what you're supposed to do and stay in bed and be resting, He'll say, well, no persimmons for you this year. But He knew her heart was right. See, her heart just wanted to serve Him. So yeah, there's some of those kinds of stories in here, and there's a little romance in here. Husband and wife and the persimmons, and it's a very sweet little book. Not just persimmons. There's lots of history and folklore, and like for instance, Coach, did you know that you can predict the weather by cutting open a persimmon seed?
And what would it tell you?
So it depends on if it's a spoon. So when you open up, there's a picture of it in the book. When you open up a persimmon seed, it's going to look like either like a fork or a knife or a spoon. And depending on what it is, that's the kind of weather you're going to have. I think you could probably learn this in the Farmer's Almanac, not that we study that often.
This reeks Farmer's Almanac. Yeah.
It does, right? But I took a picture of, we actually went to a persimmon tree out in Springville. It belongs to my son-in-law's mom. And boy, it has really good pulp. And we got several of the seeds, and we cut it open. This would have been 2 years ago when we cut them open. I guess I can't find the picture. Anyway, it was spoons that year. Here it is. I don't know if you can see this or not. But see the little spoon in there? It makes like a spoon in the center of that persimmon seed. Well, that means it's going to be bad weather. Like that's like a shovel. Like a spoon's like a shovel. Yeah, and each one means something different. But yes, and I think I gave the statistic. It's not right that often, but it's kind of fun. It's like, there's all these old wives' tales about like if a woolly worm's black or whatever, that means a bad winter. The persimmon seed's also one of those things that people use as a predictor for, there's going to be a lot of snows this year. And so, yeah. But there's just a lot of little fun things like that in here. A lot of did you knows and stories and
well, Michelle, you visit Florida. You like to bass fish and such. And
yes.
You know how we predict the weather in Florida during the summer?
Hot or hottest?
It's going to rain.
Yeah,
it's going to rain. It's going to rain this afternoon about 2:30, 3 o'clock.
Yep.
It'll be over by 4 o'clock. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to rain.
and even
guaranteed.
If it doesn't rain, it's going to feel like it did because it's so humid that you're already all wet. Because
yeah.
I fished in that. Yes.
Yeah. And it's over as soon as it starts. In-person gatherings are kind of rare these days, but you went to an event this week. What took you there?
Oh, yeah, the Serious Writer group that I'm a part of, that so many people, Bethany and Kyle founded Serious Writer, and many of the people in the chat room are a part of that, the club, the Serious Writer Club. It's just a big family, really. We always have a serious, well, this is the second year, so I guess always for 2 years, a Serious Writer of the Year and a Serious Writer Book of the Year. And then this year we had the Book of the Decade contest, honoring books for the past 10 years. And I was a judge in several of those. There's many, many rounds of judges, but I got to judge some of the children's. Let me tell you, it was tough competition. Tenths of points between the winner and the second place and third place. Lots of talented writers submitted. In fact, they had hundreds. I think it was 700 in one category. Lots and lots and lots of entries. And usually, the plan was to always do this in New York City, right before the Book Expo would kick off, which is what we did 2 years ago. We had it in New York City. It was so awesome. We rented out a really nice room, and it was really swanky. Got all dressed up, and in fact, that was the first time I ever met you, Coach, because Dell.
That's right. You were at the Morton Steakhouse, if I recall.
Yes, and he said, you want to come be on PJ Net TV, and Kyle and I are like, okay.
What's that?
Yeah, and so we were like, sure, and that's when I first got introduced to this wonderful family. But so anyway, we couldn't go to New York this year, so we decided to have it. Still wanted to have it and honor everybody. We had it in Nashville, which is the Midwestern version, I guess, of New York City. It was pretty
really,
cool.
But,
we couldn't.
Yeah.
We couldn't. Well, they say it's like the Midwestern LA's. I don't know if it's gonna. That's good. There's a lot of entertainment there, but we couldn't take 14 people to a restaurant. That's not allowed. So Kyle's genius. He said, let's just hire a personal chef. So Chef Tyler came and blessed us and cooked for everybody. And I brought all of my decorations from all the past weddings and baby showers and all the things that everybody always has me decorate for. I brought all of that, and we did it up real nice. And we got to really bless the folks who were winners, and they put it on Facebook Live. It was a wonderful time. So I got to hang out with some of my favorite people in the world, and we got to honor some really amazing writers and some books that needed to be honored as well. So yeah, that was nice. But now I think, we're just keeping our fingers, well, actually not just fingers and toes crossed, but praying that at the end of 14 days, nobody will be ill. Because we wore masks, and you had to have your temperature taken when you walked in, and everybody, we took all the precautions, lots of hand gel and all of that. But we had people there from several different states. So California, Montana, Ohio, I can't, Mississippi, lots of different states. Florida, Bethany came up from Tampa, Kyle came down from Michigan, and I came from Indiana. So there were a lot of states represented. I hope we didn't break any laws, because we did keep it under 14 people. I think it had to be under 16 or less in an Airbnb. And we had it at this really nice, kind of like a mansion of an Airbnb, and we only had 14 people with a personal chef. So we did everything right, and we're just believing God that nobody will be ill. We're a week out now, so it's going well.
Well, it's just good to know that there are, even in limited capacities, personal get-togethers, because for a while it seems we were just on a trajectory of a virtual reality, which I would find okay, but you just can't ever substitute just getting together. And here in the South we do cookouts, and
Right.
in Cajun country they have low country boil. You've done the low country boil, haven't you?
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, you ain't lived. You ain't lived.
What is it?
Well, you can you basically start with some dirty water, and if it's not dirty, you just pour raw garlic in it, and then just Google it. We had some business associates come down from New York City to visit our office, and our office, had a warehouse in the back. So while we were meeting, I had our staff doing a low country boil, and you throw crawdads and shrimp and taters,
Oh, okay.
and you just boil it not Old Spice. Oh heck, can't think of the name of the Cajun spice, but anyway. So when it got time for lunch, they think we're going to go to some fancy, swanky. No, we just go in the warehouse, and when you get done, you just put a newspaper on top of a folding table, and you just pour the water off, and then you just dump this junk out there on the table, and there's this mountain of shrimp and crawdads and onion and garlic. These guys are in their starch white shirts and ties. It's like, welcome to Florida, and
So this is a little Cajun stuff,
it
huh?
was culture shock for them, but they had
I
gotten used
bet.
to it. We were in my office, and I was talking. There were three of them, and I was talking to one of the guys, and he had that kind of deer in headlight look. I could tell he wasn't paying attention. So I said, hey, you okay? He said, what's that? Or in New York accent, what is that? Oh, that's my pistol. He said, why do you have a pistol on your desk? I kind of leaned up into his face and I said, what if I needed to kill somebody?
Gosh, did these people ever come back?
We actually got the contract, believe it or not, with AT&T.
See, again, that's a miracle of God right
he
there.
did not see the humor in that, and he did,
I bet not.
but it was well known in my office. We worked all around, all hours of the day and night, and
Sure.
everybody knew that if you came into the office to announce yourself well, don't just open the door because you're going to get perforated.
Yes, I'll remember that when I come visit. I lived in Texas for almost a decade, and the joke from that miscongeniality is, it's Texas. Even my florist carries a gun, but that really is true.
Yeah.
Everybody I know, was a pistol pack a mama. It might be hot pink, but they'd have one in their pocketbook, and so, yeah.
Well, what amazed me
I have no problem
is
with that.
in high school, every truck, every guy had a shotgun in the rear glass, hung there, and in every boy's pocket was a knife. And my 8th grade science project was ballistics. So we went down to the
Wow.
baseball field with a 30-30 rifle, a 22, and a shotgun. And we shot bullets into these buckets of sand and buckets of water and got the projectile out and showed, here's what a full metal jacket does, here, hollow point. And we literally did, can you imagine that happening today?
Oh, no, it's a different world now.
Never.
I know.
In a million years.
Last time I was in Florida, though, I visited with my good writer friend, Eva Marie Everson, who still needs to be on this show. She's an amazing writer, but she's also my outdoorsy friend. We both like to fish. They have property, and it has a pond. Got some big catfish in there, actually. And we fished for a bit, and then her husband Dennis said, "Do you want to shoot?" And I'm like, "Yes." I'm from Southern Indiana, of course I do. And so they have Target over there, and I shot different kinds of guns. But what was really funny, Coach? I can wink with my right eye, but I can't close my left eye. I can't do it.
Really?
And so
You shoot
I
left-handed.
don't know why. I've tried forever, and neither can Eva. And so we both have to wear like a pirate patch
Oh, come
our
on.
left eye in order to be able to fire. No, I'm not kidding. So we were making fun of each other. I'm like, I'm a really good shot if I have that patch on, but if I don't have that on, I can't hit it at all. So I said, well, I hope I'm never in a situation where I'd have to use a gun. I had to be like, just a second, Mr. Robber, let me go get my patch for my eye because I can't
Just
see
fire in their
otherwise.
direction. They'll get the message. You'll get lucky.
So, but I do
can't
like to shoot.
I can't believe what I was on Facebook, and they have these ads, and I actually thought of you because you like to bass fish. My wife used to go
Yes.
bass fishing with me, but you're out on the water a long time, and women, but they they had a problem. I'll have to send you a link to it if I can find it again. But it is the solution to had too much coffee and out on the lake.
No.
Oh yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh yeah. And I couldn't believe it was on Facebook. I'm looking at this and but I did think of you. I thought, you're out there fishing. My wife used to be with me like, those guys
Yeah,
ain't no
you
big
just
deal,
don't-
but girls,
You just don't hydrate much. It's all about the fishing, not about any drinking or eating during that season. No, I know what you're saying, but yeah, send me that video. But
I'll send it to you.
I'm not sure if
We'll-
I'm offended that you were thinking of me or not.
I know you bass fish,
That's true.
and that
That's true. I do bass fish.
I know.
I
know
haven't got
you
to do much of it yet because this year, it's just been a crazy season with the buying of the dream house and trying to fix the dream house up, and it's just been a very busy season. But I'm excited. I'm excited about things that are happening. I'll tell you about this little persimmon book it's called The Perfect Persimmon that just launched yesterday. It went to #1 on Amazon in one category, Midwest Cooking, I think. But then today people were trying to order it and it said out of stock. Who knew that many people would buy a persimmon book? So I said, wouldn't that be just like God? But this would be like one of my best-selling books when I barely know how to boil water. I was on an interview the other day about this book, and the lady said, now, did you prepare each one of these recipes in the book? And I just started laughing. I said, boy, you didn't read my whole bio, did you? I said, I'm not a very good cook. I'm really good at baking. All the desserts, yes, we tried all of those, and Jeff I think I finally burned him out on persimmon everything, cookies, breads, puddings, all of that. But some of the healthier with the fuyu persimmon, I had to rely on many of my friends who are much better chefs than I am, and some professionals too, to help me with those recipes. So those are not all road tested, but they are by somebody who's a much better cook than I am. So yeah, but the directions are in here. I guess you can't really mess it up.
Now, Michelle, we've been doing this for a long time, and I've come to realize that you are going to be wearing one of two things: black or leopard.
Or leopard.
Now, today I
Yes.
don't recognize what you're wearing, and I'm going to kind of zoom this back as you
It's a leopard.
tell us.
Yeah. I have leopard earrings, and it's a jean jacket with leopard on it. I mean, that's kind of my brand.
That's your brand. Yeah.
It is. It's on my website. I once spoke at a conference in Florida, again, back to Florida, and it was Eva Marie Everson's Florida Christian Writers Conference. She and Mark Hancock run that. And when I got there, I think it was either her or Edie Melson, one, had actually wrapped the podium where I was going to speak in leopard wrapping paper.
I didn't know
I
there
was
was
like,
such
well,
a
this
thing.
must be my room. I know.
Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of known for that. People tag me in leopard stuff all the time on Facebook. I'm like, oh, that's awesome.
Before we go, tell us what you and Marty are up to.
So my sister and I are still doing the Bible study now it's every Monday. We tape Monday mornings, and then I put it on Facebook right after that. And, we talked to you about, thought we might suspend it once they started back up in person, but we didn't because people still wanted it. And there's so many people that are reaching out to us and still saying, this is our lifeline. Please don't stop. So we're not going to stop. In fact, we're going to do more. Marty and I are going to have our own podcast, Sisters 2, Sisters in Christ Jesus and Sisters, in the flesh. She's actually my biological sister.
Have you gotten your logo done yet?
We do have our logo.
Well, please send that to
uptown.
me. I want to do something.
I
with it.
will.
I'll
I'm
have
very
some fun
excited
with it.
about it. My nephew, Corbin Hilty, does all kinds of stuff like that. He's a graphic artist, and so he put together a beautiful Sisters 2 logo for us. And, my sister's an interior designer as well as a pastor's wife and a Bible teacher, and so she was hard to please on that logo. I think Corbin had to do 4 or 5 runs at it. But it's
just
amazing.
a logo. I mean,
Marty knew just what she wanted, so yeah. And I'll tell you something else that we're doing. Marty and I are both teaching classes for a local college here, Ivy Tech, where she's doing some decorator courses through Zoom, and I'm teaching 4 writing courses. So that starts this fall as well. So we're having a good time. She's helped me decorate the house. We're still teaching God's Word and getting ready to launch a podcast. So you know something about that, don't you, Coach?
well, yeah, a little bit getting there, and I know this. I have had the opportunity to video classes that you were instructing, and you're good. You're good because
Aw,
well,
thanks.
it's I like your style. Oh, I mean, they're all good. I mean, if you want to learn something, you're going to learn. But I'm saying, one, a lot of times I can just set the camera up, turn it on, and I can go get a cup of coffee and come back because the person never moves. Not with you. Oh no, I need to stay right there because you're back and forth, and your arms going.
Yeah, it's really hard to talk with you here without doing all kinds of. I know I don't know how to speak without my hands.
It's
really been self-control here.
But you came across in the class was on ghostwriting. And it's probably a topic that not many people, I certainly wasn't that well acquainted with it, but it was kind of fun to watch you walk this kind of tightrope because I'm the expert on ghostwriting, but I can't tell you anything about it because, well, it's confidential and you're just going to have to take my word for it that I do a lot of this and there's good money in it, really, but I can't tell you anything about it because I'm
can't tell you who I write for. I'm sorry. Can't tell you any of the names, but here's how this process works. Yeah, that's true. That's a tough one to teach. I always have to go off tape. I'm like, I know we're recording this, but we're going to have to go dark for just just a little bit so I can talk off the
Off the
record.
record.
That's right.
It was fun. We have so much fun.
Yeah.
I hope the conferences, find their way
Oh.
back, because at this point, I question whether I really need to go. Most of the video that needs to be shot, I've shot. It's kind of expensive. But I tell you what, that is an experience. I'm not a writer, and I'm telling you, you need to go to these things. You are going to
The
meet.
camaraderie is amazing.
You're going
Isn't
to
it? It's
meet
just-
some
yeah.
people that are outstanding. I mean, this is the Serious Writer family. I don't know if all the conferences are that way, but I can tell you, I have made friends and made associations that have led to things. And it's
Amen.
it's a worship service.
Yes.
It's
and
not-
there's so many divine appointments there.
Yeah.
Every time, whether you're there with a book to pitch, you're just there to learn, or you're there to just shoot video, God has divine appointments with your name on it. I love it so much. And I'm with you, Coach. I miss the in-person being together, and it's often all the magic happens after the classes when
Well-
you're just sitting around having a Diet Coke in the in the
You're
dining
there.
room.
You took it right out of my mouth, Michelle.
Right?
The keynote speakers are great. The worship is great. The classes are great. Even the food is great. But I tell you where where the big bang in the buck is those conversations next to the water fountain.
Yes.
Yeah. Hmm.
I agree.
It's
Yeah.
you meet people, and there is a genuine, and I used to say a genuine sense of concern. Well, that's really not a good way of expressing it. A guy was trying to give me a compliment one time, and he said, Coach, he said, you act like you care. I said, excuse me, I'm not acting. I do. I actually
I really
do.
do, yeah.
And so it's not a sense of care and concern and love. It's genuine. You can feel it. And I tell you, the tough part is on the way home, because you feel like you've just kind of watched Rocky. You're going.
Yeah, you're like,
and-
da da da. That's
you know,
right. Yeah, you're all jazzed
And
up.
who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to tell?
Yeah.
You're hours from home, and you want to get there. You want to get in the trenches and start fighting, and you just got to make that road trip. And but
That's
they're
why
awesome.
I get on the phone and call whoever wasn't there and tell them all about it. I think you talk so much at the conferences, though. It's the only time when I get home that I'm not talking. I think Jeff kind of likes me to go to some of these conferences, because I can
Told you they
really-
were
it's
magic.
real quiet. That's right. You just talk yourself silly. It's really been interesting, but it is. You have to go to one. You have to experience it. My mother, when she was alive, I would call her, at least midway through the conference, just to tell her, because she liked to hear about the associates and the contracts and the people I was meeting. And I miss her terribly. But when I wouldn't call sometimes because it would be too late. You might not get back to your room till 1 a.m. I mean, you were out just chatting with people, and she would pout, well, I just waited for your call. And I'd say, Mama, we were chatting till 1 a.m. And there was just too much to tell. And I'd call her on the way home, and sometimes talk 5 and 6 hours the whole drive home, just because so much amazing stuff happens at those conferences that's not ever even in a classroom.
Yeah.
So.
You're right. Well, Michelle, it's been fun, and I look forward to having more fun next week. You always are a joy to be with, and we appreciate you sharing with us. And even when you can't be here, you send some awesome second string, substitute, pinch hitters, whatever you want to call them, and we appreciate you. And hey, can't wait till next week. We'll see you about that
Thank
time.
you.
All righty. Michelle Medlock Adams, right here each week. Well, mostly, yeah. When she's not traveling or fishing, or but she's here every week, folks. We do this every Wednesday night at about 9:30 Eastern time. We're glad you have taken some of your time to share with us. I hope that something that was said resonated in your mind. I hope that you have been encouraged. I hope that you have been inspired, and I hope that you get off your butt and actually do something about it, not just sit here and watch. Okay, because there's a lot of work to get done out there. Let me ask you two questions. What's the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And when was that? Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this, but the work that we are going about is God's work. It's work in the kingdom, and it's literally a matter of life and death. Folks, there's spiritual warfare going on out there. We have to be bold. And I hope that none of us will ever be satisfied with our answers to either question.